Hello everyone, this is Satish Gupta again. Today we'll tackle the second diagnostics tool that economists have developed to gauge the health of the economy, which is unemployment. So when the economy is sick, a lot of people get laid off. There's a tremendous amount of unemployment. There's a lot of pain and suffering. It leads to a lot of social and economic issues like domestic violence, divorce rate goes up. So economists measure unemployment to see how the economy is doing. So in order to measure unemployment, first you have to figure out labor force. Labor force is essentially people that are working or would like to work. So Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is the division of Department of Labor, collects all this information. So they take surveys every month and they ask 4 questions. They take surveys, they call people. It says, are you 16 or over? Are you working? If you're not working, are you actively looking? Now keep that in mind. This is actively looking. If you are unemployed but you're not looking for work, you are not part of the labor force. Or say for example, you work for Ford Motor Company, you got laid off, and you sent 1,000 resumes and you never got a reply, you never got a job, and you got discouraged and you quit looking. So you are not part of the labor force. You have to be actively looking. Or say for example, you're a student and you graduated and they say, hey, before I get a job, I'm going to go to Europe for a month before I start looking for a job. So you're not part of the labor force. You have to be actively looking in order for you to be counted as part of the labor force. And the fourth requirement is for paid employment, but that means for money. You're not looking for volunteer work. So if you satisfy all these 4 conditions, then you are part of the labor force. So basically, labor force is people 16 or over, either working or looking for work for money, not for volunteer work. Approximately 50% of our population is part of the labor force. So to give you some numbers, our population is 326 million approximately. Out of that, a lot of them are children. So adult population, that is people that are over the age of 16 or over, 260 million people. So there are 260 million adults in America. And as you know, out of these adults, a lot of them are retirees, a lot of them do not want to work. So people that are actually in the labor force is approximately 160 million. So out of 326 million people, we have a lot of kids and retirees. So adult population 260, and out of that, labor force is 160 million. So unemployment is basically, unemployment rate for that matter, is proportion of labor force, part of the percent of these people that are not able to find work. So let's just take an example. Let's say in America right now, there are 160 million people in the labor force. Out of that, 10 million are not able to find work. So unemployment rate, which always figure per 100 percent per 100. You take the number of unemployed, which is 10 million. You take the number of in the labor force, which is 160 million. You multiply by 100 to get it per 100. So you get a number of 6.25%. That means out of 100 people in the labor force, 6.25% of the population is not able to find work even though they would like to work. What is our goal for unemployment rate? Is 5%. And you can see that it's not zero. Why have we why we have decided to set a goal for 5% rather than zero? You know, the reason being is very difficult to get unemployment below 5%. And what are some of the reasons, which we'll discuss very soon. So since 5% is approximately the best we can do, it is also called the natural rate of unemployment. So when unemployment rate is 95%, we call it economy is fully employed. Or you can say when the 5% of people are looking for work, we still call the economy fully employed. So let's flip the page and now let's see why we settle for 5%. Following are the reasons for settling at 5% unemployment rate. So these are seasonal, frictional, and structural. So let's take one at a time. A lot of our economic activity is based on seasons. In winter, farmers are not able to plow their fields, so they are unemployed in winter. UPS hires a lot of people during Thanksgiving, or skis people that work for ski slopes, they get jobs during winter. Like in summer, tourism is very high. So a lot of our economic activity is based on seasons. So there's a lot of unemployment created because of the seasonality. So that's part of the 5% of unemployed. Frictional. Frictional means in between. So let's say you graduate tomorrow and you're looking for a job. If you want your first job right away, then you can work at McDonald's. They're always hiring. But since you graduated and you have skills and you have education, you don't want to work for McDonald's. So it may take you 2 to 3 months to find the right job with your expectations about salary and about your long-term career and based on all the hard work and all the education you put in. So it may take you 2 to 3 months to find a job. So that means in between, you're unemployed. That's called friction in between. Also, industry is changing. Old industries are dying. People are getting laid off, and new industries are being born. For example, CD industry that produce CDs is not many people buy CDs. People used to buy VCR. They used to buy cassette tape. They don't buy that anymore. So all the industries went dead, and all the people got laid off. But the new industries are being born by Netflix, Apple, Google, Facebook. So it takes time for people to move from dying industry to upcoming industry. So that creates some friction also. And there's some regional difference also. Let's say there's an oil boom in Texas and there's an economic crisis in New York. So if you're a chemical engineer, you need to move to Texas. But it may take some time for you to sell your house, get your kids, off college or schools before you move. So it may take you 4, 5, 6 months to do the move. So that's also in between, frictional. So part of the 5% is seasonal and frictional. And then last is structural. What is structural? Sometimes there's a mismatch between skills that employers desire versus the skills as employees we have. So there's a mismatch between skills that are in demand and the skills that are in supply. So there's a mismatch. For example, not too long ago, there was a huge shortage of math and science teachers. Why? Because a lot of people did not have that skill, but there are a lot of unemployed, but they did not have a degree in math or science. So even though there were a lot of jobs, they couldn't have it. So there was structural unemployment. Not too long in America, there was a shortage of nurses. So there were a lot of people unemployed, but they couldn't work as a nurse because nursing requires training. You have to go to school for like 4 years. Like for example, currently there's a shortage of family doctors. People that practice family medicine, they are in short supply. There's a shortage of data analysts. There's a shortage of robotic engineers. So seasonal, frictional, and structural, that work together constitute natural rate. So our natural rate is 5%. That consists of some seasonal unemployment, some frictional unemployment, and some structural unemployment. So now you can see why we have set a goal for ourselves as 5% as being the full employment rate rather than set the goal as 0. The final type of unemployment is called cyclical. So we're going to concentrate on this aspect of unemployment, cyclical. Cyclical unemployment is unemployment caused by a downturn in the economy. For example, right now, because the coronavirus, economy is suffering and millions of people are laid off. We expect our unemployment rate to jump from, prior to this coronavirus, unemployment rate was less than 4%, and now it's going to shoot between 10 and 20%. So to explain you in a production possibility curve, so I've drawn a production possibility curve over here. Here are the cars. If we employ all the resources, we can produce 100 million cars. If we employ all the resources in manufacturing airplanes, we can produce 10 million, or we can produce some combination over here between A, B, and C. But from time to time, the economy takes a nosedive, and we are inside the production possibility curve. That's where we should be for all the resources fully employed. But we are inside. That means there are a lot of resources that are idle. For example, right now, Boeing has no order for planes, so their factories are shut down. So, the factories shut down, a lot of people are laid off. So a lot of resources are idle and we're inside. So this is our main goal, is to figure out how do you move from here where the resources are not being utilized to over here. That's what our whole macroeconomics is about. How to tackle the cyclical and unemployment. And as you learn later, government has some tools available to solve this problem. One is fiscal policy, that's where government spends money, and other is by Federal Reserve Bank, where they print money. Those two policies you will learn later on in the subsequent chapters. So keep in mind, our primary concern in macroeconomics is cyclical unemployment. How do you set in place policies which will allow you to move from inside the production possible to the production possible curve? Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.